Good afternoon. We're working today on A-level biology. So my agenda looks something like this. We're going first to take an overview at the subject. Second, we will learn tips on how to study A-level biology. Third, we're going to look at the grading system, meaning I'll show you how could you mathematically, like how could you calculate the grade so you can score an A or A. And then we will look at the learning programs for this subject. So before I get any further, if you have a question, just raise your hand. You have that button in Zoom, or you can send me on the chat box. I'm watching over too. All right. What is A level in general? So that applies for biology or any other subject. A level, it's a combination of two parts. There is the S part and the A2. So the combination of AS and A2 is what we call A level. For Edexcel A level, we divide, it's like a modular system, meaning we divide the subject into units. So you got 3 units for AS and another 3 for A2. Some universities just accept an AS, so you just take the AS in 1 year. Or if university requires A level as a whole, so you need to take the AS and A2. So right, again, so AS is, some people take it over 1 year, some people take it in few months. So it depends on how many subjects you're taking, and it depends on your university requirements. Now, as you can see here, I'm looking at Edexcel. Why for A levels, I strongly recommend Edexcel. As I told you, it's a modular system. This means that you have units, and let's say somebody didn't perform well in 1 unit. Let's say he didn't do well in unit 2. So we could simply repeat unit 2. You don't need to repeat the entire subject. Few days ago, the results for IAL was released at Edexcel, and student didn't do well in 1 unit. So all what it takes now, this is his transcript, all what it takes now is that he repeats this particular exam. That's not like the case with Cambridge, because Cambridge, it's like a whole subject, meaning if he didn't perform well, then he has to repeat the entire subject. Now, that's the modular system for Edexcel, actually very helpful. Not only practically, you don't need to repeat the entire year, it's also cheaper this way, right? Because the fees for repeating 1 unit, it's way cheaper than repeating the entire subject. Another thing is that you could just do it without a school. There are no practical. There's no like actual practical exam. You go to a school lab and you have to perform. So you can do it homeschooling. The subject, the content is smaller, way smaller. Questions are quite more direct. What do I mean by direct questions? If you look at Cambridge exams, there is one multiple choice paper, paper 1, and it's actually quite tricky. Like how multiple choice questions, you've done that in IGCSE, how tricky they can be. So that's not there. You don't have a whole multiple choice paper for Edexcel. It saves time. How does it save time for Edexcel? Simply because you could take the exams 3 times in the year. So you can take them in Jan, you can take them in June, you can take in October. That January session is not available for Cambridge. And lastly, it's the boundaries, the grade boundaries for Edexcel. This is like average grade boundaries change. You can see here, unit 1 was 37 out of 80. Unit 2 was 45 out of 80. The grade boundaries are quite low, which is quite helpful. someone's asking, can't read the name well, he or she is saying, will university value Edexcel grades the same as Cambridge? They're not going to look at the exam board. They just look at you've done this subject in A level, whether you've done it Edexcel, Cambridge, is not going to make any difference for your university application. All right, so that was just overview of the exam boards. Let's get to what are you going to study. Now, this is something you should do for every subject you're studying. Start from the exam. Look at the exam. Look at the exam papers. See how they are organized. That helps you a lot for planning. That helps you a lot for like studying itself. So if you know how the exam is, so you would know for sure how to study. So I'm going to show you like an overview of this subject. As I told you, you have that part is AS and that part is A2. Let me show you the units. Let's start with unit 1. What does it talk about? There is the first part is quite similar to what you've done in IGCSE. It talks about carbohydrates, sugars, proteins, fats, and water. So it's like chemistry, but in biology. We usually call this biochemistry. So like you studied the part of chemistry related to biology. The second part of unit 1, so we're still in unit 1, so let me just show you what I'm talking about. So that's unit 1. The second main part, it talks about the circulatory system. So we go into so much depth about the heart, blood circulation, the diseases related to the heart. So all of this is part of unit 1. And the third part talks about genetics. If you remember from your IGCSE, there was one part about inheritance, phenotype, genotype. Remember these stuff? That's very similar to it. In terms of difficulty, this part would be the most challenging. That's the part where they ask you a lot of questions that require analysis and data. The first part would require memorization because you need to be able to draw things like what I have here. Genetics, for most students who scored like an A in IGCSE, they would find it very easy because it's quite repetitive to what they've done in IGCSE. Let me answer one of you. What if my school doesn't allow Edexcel? Then you have no choice. So you're going to have to do Cambridge. Someone's called Miriam. If Edexcel has many benefits over Cambridge, why would students still take Cambridge? Because it's still there. It's old, meaning so many students did not change. So they're still following the same system. Unit 2 is like the main part. You have one big part about ecology. Some of you don't like it, but it's there. You have another part about cells. And you have a third part that talks, if you remember that from IGCSE, there was one part talks about variation, natural selection, evolution. That's unit 2. Now, you should never do like unit 2 before unit 1. Makes sense, right? So you have to do these in order because I've seen students do unit 1 with unit 4 or unit 2 and unit 3 before they do. They have to be done in order because it's very common that they ask you questions during the unit 2 exam from unit 1. So they expect you to do, although they give you the total freedom to do whatever unit at any time. I've seen that many times. Students take unit 4 with unit 2 and they haven't done unit 1. It's like a disaster. So just make sure you do those units in their correct order. What about unit 3? Now, unit 3, as I told you, there was no actual practical exam for, so you don't do like exams with your hand for practical, but there's something very similar to alternative to practical, those you do in IGCSE. That's what we call unit 3. So you see what's the title of the unit? Practical skills, right? That's like you write the experiments. Unit 3 doesn't have like its own content. So there's no like a book of unit 3. No, it's basically the prep taken from unit 1 and unit 2. So you study all these practicals you've done in unit 1, unit 2, and you examine these in unit 3. If you ask me like which one of those units is the trickiest, it's unit 3. it takes so much solving. You need to solve a lot of exam papers about Unit 3 because it is the one that is least predictable. So like they continuously change the way they ask the question. So that is AS. So this means this a Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3 all together is what we call AS Biology. Abdullah's asking, do you think students should take A-level biology if we don't plan to go to medicine? If you're not going to medicine, do A-level maths, right? But for me, if someone asks me, I always try to keep my options open, try to have many options open. Obviously, you can't take too many A-levels, but if you're not taking A-level, you're not going to medicine, anything related to medical studies, take maths, A-level maths, or chemistry. What about A2? So this is what we call A2. You got Unit 4. Unit 4 is the shortest. It's really short. So much related to Unit 2. So Unit 4 and Unit 2, they're so connected. Meaning students who are taking the Unit 4 exam, they really should revise for Unit 2 because they're quite similar. There is one big part about photosynthesis. There is another one about immunity, immune system, the white blood cells, vaccines, all of this stuff. And there is the common part between Unit 2 and Unit 4. That's what we call ecology. So you see, it's like 2 and 4 very related. And again, Unit 4, students struggle in it. It's short, the content, it's easy, but this unit in particular requires a lot of in-depth study. Now, if you ask me which unit is the most interesting, it's the one that would really help you. Those who are going to medicine, the unit that would really help you for your medical studies is Unit 5, mostly about humans. There's one part about respiration, exercise, muscles. All of this is Unit 5. Big part about homeostasis. You study about how do you regulate your breathing, your heart rate, nervous system. And there is small part about gene technology. For Unit 5 in particular, there is also something really helpful. They give you an article. They give you an article in advance, like 1 month or 2 months before the exam. You just read it before the exam, and they ask you questions about this article in the actual exam. And this is like the easiest thing because you prepare it. Your teacher helps you to prepare it. You can easily predict the questions. So that what makes Unit 5 quite long, but it's like among the easiest to score a good grade. What about the last unit? Unit 6, practical. Remember Unit 3, alternative to practical? That's quite similar. But again, they're going to ask you practicals from AS and A2. So again, those practical exams, they expect you to have knowledge of all the previous units. Okay? So I was asking like, which unit is the easiest among all of this? I would say 5. Students love the content. It's all related to humans. And the article part makes it very predictable. All right? So this was like the entire subject in 10 minutes. Let's get to the next part. How do you study? What's the best way to study? As I told you, do that backwards technique, meaning find when is your exam. So let's say somebody's taking his exam in January. Find your exam date. So let's say you're taking Unit 1 in January. That's Friday, 10th of January. That's the code. So when you register for the exam, these are the codes of the exams. Then plan according. So for instance, each one of those units take about 8 weeks. If you're taking like 1 lesson per week, you can finish the entire unit in 8 weeks. Start with the lesson. Try to make the best out of the lesson. Usually in my lessons, when I'm teaching, I give you in advance like a worksheet of what I'm going to talk about. So there's like a PDF booklet of what we're going through. This keeps you engaged, meaning that you're going to go step by step with what we're doing during the lesson. So that would make you make the best out of the lesson. In addition, I would strongly recommend that you have the notes there with you. So I give you the notes. I give you that worksheet. The worksheet is just meant to keep you like tuned, engaged during the lesson. I'm going to go by the notes. So you follow what's there in the notes and you solve those questions of the worksheet. And that will make you like mostly get up to 60-70% of what you meant to study. Step 2, what I always tell every student in the world is to revise as soon as possible. You get that recording, watch it. There's like that button that helps you to watch fast. You can go into those parts that you didn't understand. So watch the recording. You don't need to watch the entire lesson again. Just watch the parts that you didn't understand or you're still unsure about. Again, the notes, but don't ever start rewriting like the notes over. Don't memorize the content from the textbook because you're going to forget it. All right. So again, most studies tell you that reading, highlighting, summarizing is just a waste of time. So I don't want you to start rewriting the notes, highlighting. Just go through it, okay? So it's going to take you 1 hour just to revise what you studied during the lesson. And that must be within 48 hours of the lesson. So you took the lesson on Monday. By Wednesday, you should have done this part. Otherwise, you will forget. It's so easy these days to forget things. So that's something I strongly recommend. Once you're done with that, we're going to go to step 3. You're going to solve classified questions about what you've studied. This is active recalling. This is the time where you will remember the things. Solve with open book. Many students, many teachers are against that, but I strongly recommend you have your book, you have your notes. You may even copy the answers from the notes, and that will help you to remember things for long term, right? So once you submit the homework, you receive the answers. So I usually write the answers myself. I highlight the keywords because most of the exams are all about the examiner going over and checking these keywords. So that's how they mark your exam. So I usually highlight them so you could see whether you missed or not missed any of those points. And that means you're done with this part. As I told you, each unit is roughly 10 classes. So within 8 to 10 weeks, you're fully done with this unit. Meanwhile, there's always, for each one of those blocks, like for biological molecules or for all of these blocks I told you about, there's a test. And that test will help you to connect these topics together. You may get disappointed at the beginning because it's like a whole new system of marking and questions, but with time you will improve. That's the thing. Don't be very optimistic at the beginning with what you get. The grades you used to score in IGC, you're not going to score these at the beginning here. The grade boundaries are low. Be resilient, be patient. The grades will improve with time. Now, as I told you, within 8 weeks, we'll be fully done. So now you're going to start solving full exam papers. Revision is just as important as studying itself. So you really need to dedicate at least 1 month of revision so you can connect all these topics together. The Edexcel new syllabus started in 2019. They got 3 exam sessions every year. So from 19 till 2014, each year you have 3 exams. So you really need to solve all of these to secure a good grade. Once you solve them, you bookmark all these questions you didn't solve well, return back to them, you will secure a very good grade. It's like a recipe. Whoever does that, he would or she would score a good grade. All right. So again, that's timetable of solving. See, we start with 2019 all the way to 2024. We keep 2 papers like as mock tests. So you can time yourself, you pace yourself. And as I told you, it's just like a recipe. Once you follow it, you would score a good grade. All right. So if there is any question, tell me now. Okay. Next, how do you calculate the grade? Some people are under the impression once they receive their grades for AS, they expect an A. There is no A for AS. So you can only score an A if you're taking the entire A level. Let me show you how. Here is the 3 units of AS. Unit 1 is worth 40. Unit 2 is worth 40% of your AS. So if you only take an A, this is the percentage of each one of those units. And unit 3 is half credit, meaning it's just like 20%. Right? Now, if you decided to take the whole A level, then this percentage becomes half. So meaning unit 1 will be 20%, unit 2 will be 20%, and unit 3 would just be 10% entire A level. Okay? So this is the percentage of each unit. What about A2? Same. So again, if you add up these all together, that will be 100%. Okay? Now, how do you calculate your grade? We have something called UMS. A UMS, called Universal Marking System. So unit 1 is 120. See, the total as a UMS, not as a percentage, is 120. Unit 2 is another 120. And unit 3 is 60. So your total UMS for AS is 300. Okay? For A2 is the same thing. You have another 120, 120, and 60. So that's another 300. Now, how could you possibly score an A or A? Let me show you. Let me just put these aside here. Let's assume you're only taking AS. You're not taking A level. So an A starts from 240. So to score an A in AS alone, you need a minimum of 40 out of 300. Okay? What if you're taking the entire A level? How much should you need? You would require 480 from 600. So that's the minimum to score an A. But you can see there is no A star yet. So how would you score an A star? To score an A star for your entire A level, you would need that 480 definitely. Plus, do you see those 3 units I have here? Those unit 4, 5, and 6. You would require 270. That's like the more challenging part, right? Most students can score that 480, but you would also require in these 3 units, you would require 270 out of 300. That's what makes the difference between A star and an A. All right? I hope this was clear because it's not very straightforward. If you have a question, tell me. All right? Last thing I'm going to tell you about, depending on what's your plan, if you're taking AS, if you're taking the entire A-level biology, what's the best way you could manage? So let's say you're only taking AS. Then in this case, you would start in September, let's say, first week of September, and plan to finish first unit. I'm talking about only AS, student just taking AS for the entire year. You would start in September and try your best to finish unit 1 before December. Why? The exam is in Jan, remember? Because you need that month here to revise unit 1. You may tell me it's like a small unit. No, you need the full month to solve full past paper for unit 1. So again, that's for somebody who's taken AS, do unit 1 in Jan here, and finish by December, 1st of December. So you have 1 full month to revise. And then you do your exam right here, okay? From Jan onwards, what are you going to do from here onwards? From Jan onwards, you're going to do unit 2 and unit. Once you get this unit 1 out of the way, you would find things easier because it's just a skill. Almost 8% of the A-level exam is a skill you need to work on, and you need to give yourself enough time to practice. Okay? What if you want to finish the whole A-level in 1 year? What can you do in this case? In this case, you must start in September, just like normal, but you would have to double the lessons. So you take 2 lessons per week. You do unit 1 for a whole month. So first month, you're just doing unit 1. You tell me like, what about unit 2 and 3? When are you going to start these? You really need 1 month to build foundation, to have the basis. You can't start unit 1 and unit 2 at the same time. You would not understand anything from unit 2. So 1 month here of building foundation, understanding the basics, and then starting from October, you start unit 2. And again, you would have to finish here before December. And then you're going to finish the entire AS in Jan. Okay? And then from Feb, March, April, May until June, all unit 4 and 5 and 6 exams are in June. You'll be doing the A2. All right, this is it. This is all what I wanted to tell you about. I'm just going to wait to see if you have questions. If you don't have questions, let me answer some of your questions.